Good morning. Welcome back to my workbench. Today, a Stihl MS500i fuel-injected chainsaw with a running issue. Come on over here and let's see if we can sort this thing out. Well, here we are with a Stihl MS500i from 2023. This is a 79cc fuel-injected chainsaw. The customer complaint is that it'll start, it'll run, but that it will quit on him, but it'll always restart after. It just keeps quitting. He's had this saw to another shop, and for some reason, he picked it up there and dropped it off here. So we're going to take this thing outside and try to replicate his issue, and then we're going to try to find the problem and fix it. Let's first of all take a look at his fuel, make sure there's fuel in it, and then we'll head outside. I'll see if Tyler is up to cutting some wood with a 500i. There's not much fuel in there. Let's just dump it out and take a look. Just a little bit of filthy fuel. That's a nasty fuel sample. And not enough to run the saw on. I'm going to zoom in here and try to show you inside the fuel tank the dirt in there. See all that? So if you see a dirt buildup inside your fuel tank, you should flush that out. That's part of good regular maintenance. A chainsaw kind of acts like an ultrasonic cleaner. When you have chunks of dirt in your fuel tank, just the vibrations of this chainsaw running will break that dirt into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces until eventually it might get through your fuel filter. So don't count on your fuel filter to keep dirt out. If you see chunks in there, flush your tank out. That's way too much dirt to have in that fuel tank. That's way too much dirt in that fuel sample. So I need to put fuel in this to run it, but there's a whole bunch of dirt in there, and I might as well get that out of there now. There's not enough here to even flush that tank out with. Just put a little bit of fuel in this, we'll shake it up, and we'll dump it out. There's still quite a bit of dirt in there. I've flushed this tank out a couple times. I'm going to let it air dry for a few minutes, and then I'll just blow some compressed air in there, and that'll blow the rest of that dirt out of there. In the meantime, let's do a little science experiment. Clean cup, a coffee filter, well, let's have a look at this. There's our fuel that's been filtered through a coffee filter, and there's not a speck of dirt in it. And there's our coffee filter. You don't want that in your fuel tank. See how fine it is? The vibrations of the chainsaw just breaks the dirt down into just fine, fine dirt. And eventually it would get through your fuel filter. This saw and dirt don't do good together. Our fuel tank is all cleaned out. Let's put some fuel in it and take this thing outside. Lots of bar oil. All right, Tyler, gear up. Let's go cut some wood. And hopefully this thing will act up for us. Meet us outside.
All right, 500i. There's no on switch, so just a purge bulb 8 times, whether it's cold or if it's a hot restart. Doesn't matter. 8 times. Ooh. That should start. Oh. We got gas right coming out of the decomp valve. All right, we've got problems. We're not going to continue. That should start.
So this thing won't start for us. By the way the customer described it, I thought that it would start for us and run for a bit, and then we would see the problem, but that's not the case. This thing is loading up with fuel. We have fuel bubbling out of the decompression valve. This thing has a fuel pump. It has a fuel injector. We got to find out what the problem is. So before I go ahead and order up some expensive parts for this thing that I may not need, I'm going to diagnose this saw and I'm going to pinpoint the exact problem, which is what Stihl expects of me. So I went ahead and I plugged this thing into my computer to get some data off of it, and it tells me quite a few things. This chainsaw has 30 hours of use on it. It's been started 505 times, and it's been shut off with the off switch 477 times. So all of the other shutdowns could have been from running out of fuel or some other issue. The pull cord has been pulled out 873 times, and the highest RPM this saw has ever reached was 15,000 RPM, and that happened at 8 hours. Not for 8 hours, at 8 hours. While I had it plugged in, I also tested all the electronics and everything passed. The computer also could tell me that the saw's control module knows there's an issue with the saw. The module is cutting back fuel at idle and at wide open. It knows the saw is getting too much fuel. It doesn't know why, because the saw isn't that smart, but it knows there's something wrong. Let's jump into this thing. Bar and chain off. See that puddle of fuel there? That's from the saw sitting there, just dumping fuel everywhere. Full of carbon. You see the color of it?
Cleanup crew.
Cleanup, aisle 2.
And we have our fire extinguisher handy all the time.
So when we had this thing outside and Tyler was trying to start it, you could see how this thing was kicking back at him. The crankcase and the cylinder are full of fuel, and you can't compress liquid. The air filter doesn't look to be in bad condition. Pretty clean. I did a 500i video quite a while ago. It's on this channel. And when I pulled that air filter cover off, there was so much dirt you couldn't even see the air filter. We'll pull that spark plug out and take a look at it. Yeah, the plug is wet and black and crusty.
All right, so that crankcase is probably full of fuel, and we want to get that out of there. You could just pull it over upside down and the fuel will run out. Now the problem is this thing doesn't have an off switch. We don't want to have a spark jump and cause a fire. So I gotta hold that stop switch. Oh, look at that. Better.
Unrelated. Well, that sounds better. Let me grab my camera and let's take a look down the hole. It looks just fine in here. A little bit of carbon on the piston. The cylinder looks good. No issues in here. I'm going to show you something else here. Spark plug is out. Doesn't roll over very nice. There's extremely strong magnets in behind this flywheel, and they are what power up the control module. So don't let anybody tell you that your 500i needs crank bearings, because you see and hear this. It's quite normal. There's two ways to fix this saw. We could fire the parts cannon at this until we fix it, or we could diagnose it and fix the problem. Let's diagnose it. Let's do some fuel system testing. I printed some documents out here to show you. So here is an overview of the fuel system on this 500i. Tools needed. We need some basic tools to go through this. So we're not going to use any fancy, expensive tools today. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So first it says you need 2 nozzles. That's these things. If you want to go to your Stihl dealer and get these, there's the part number. I don't think they're very expensive. If you don't want to go to your dealer, you can probably find a fitting like this at a hardware store or something like that. So we have 2 of those. You need 4 pieces of hose, approximately 100 millimeters in length by those dimensions. I've got 4 pieces of hose cut here. Easy enough. You need a pump. You don't have to have an expensive pump. Go on Amazon and buy the cheapest thing they have. I did, and I've got it sitting right here. And here it is. We're going to try this out today and see how it works. $25 on Amazon. We need a clamp. So I have the clamp here from Stihl, but if you don't want that, just make something. I put a couple pieces of Tygon on this, and I made a clamp. You'll probably find this in the corner store. And a connector. There's a Stihl part number. These both came from Stihl, but I think you could find something like this at the hardware store or the auto parts store. So that's it. So step 1 is to empty your fuel tank and then hit the purge button 7 times. I've already emptied the tank, but I did not hit the purge button. So we're going to do that now and remove the fuel filter at the same time. So we're purging this to get all the fuel out of the system. So the system's empty. Let's pull that fuel filter off. Fuel filter out of there. The next step is to remove the air filter base. We have a couple T27s. Air filter base off. This is hanging here because earlier I hooked this thing up to the computer. The next step is to remove the holder, which is this piece of plastic right here, held on by a T20. And next, we're going to remove this bumper. There's some wires here that we're going to pull out of their little slot. We don't want to stretch them or wreck them. Okay, so the wires are pulled out, and this whole thing is going to slide up. And the bumper is off. The next thing we're going to do is inspect this purge bulb for any damage, cracks, or leaks. And this one looks to be in perfect condition. If you find this cracked or damaged, replace it and then proceed. You can't proceed further if this thing is damaged. The instructions then say to make sure that all 4 pieces of the hardware on this pump are tight. 2 of them are JIS. I know that wasn't on our tool list. And the other 2 are a tamper-proof Torx T10. Tight and tight. Those aren't from Stihl. I just have a set of them. I don't know where I got them from, but you can get them anywhere you can buy tools, I think. If anybody can buy them, anybody can tamper. And next it says to cut 4 pieces of hose to 100 millimeters in length. Done. And next we're going to remove the fuel return line that goes down into the tank here. My fingers touching it. The hose and that white thing on the bottom of it, we're going to pull them up out of the tank. Okay, it's out. And our next step, highlighted there in blue, connect the hoses and components as shown in this diagram. So on this piece of hose that we just pulled out of the tank, they want us to hook one of the hoses that we cut up to the barb and then pinch this tight. They don't want us pinching that hose. They want us pinching a sacrificial piece of hose. It'll be a tight fit, but it'll go on there. Just like that. And then we're going to clamp that with our little homemade clamps with tie gun on them. Just like that. Next, we'll take one of our nozzles and one of our pieces of fuel line, and I'm going to put them together. I'm going to pull the fuel line out of the tank and hook it up to this end. One of these connectors, this end, now we'll take another piece of our pre-cut line. We're going to hook it into the vent on the back of our fuel pump, just like that. And we're going to take it down to the T coming out of our fuel line. Now, what do you think hooks up to here? Let's hook up our $25 pressure vacuum tester from Amazon and see how it works. So here is the pressure vacuum tester that I ordered from Amazon. I've got my other nozzle fitting here with a piece of my pre-cut fuel line. This kit comes with all sorts of things, including a manual, which I have quickly looked through, and I don't recommend reading it because it's wrong. There's spelling mistakes everywhere. I mean, everywhere. It actually describes how to use pressure and vacuum in the opposite way that this thing actually works. So, I don't know, that manual is no good. So let's make sure that our tester is working. I've labeled this V and P, pressure, vacuum. If you read the instruction manual, it'll tell you this is pressure and this is vacuum. I guess nobody double checks that those manuals are typed out correctly. We're on pressure right now. I'll just hold my finger over the end. It does hold pressure. It holds vacuum. Let's give it a try. So you do this however you want, with whatever tools you want, but in the end, this is how you need it to be. Sealed up, ready to test. So it tells me to go to pressure and pump it up to 0.8 bar. And I can't build pressure. Interesting. Let's go back over to our instruction screen and see what we should do next. So the test I just did, we tested everything in orange. That black line is the impulse line. We were not testing that. So we know there is a leak somewhere in this fuel system. Is the pressure held for 20 seconds? No. Let's do some more testing. So because we don't hold pressure, the instructions say to unclamp this and to clamp this line right here. Done. Now we're going to test again pressure, and we're going to try to build to 0.8 bar. And that is holding. Let's remove this clamp. This line right here is fuel pump to injector. Let's clamp it off. Let's pressure test again to 0.8 bar. And we can't build pressure. So we just tested everything in orange, and we could not maintain pressure, so we'll click on no. So the instructions tell me using soapy water to spray the fuel lines around this fuel pump and see if I can detect bubbles and find the leak. Soapy water. I do not see any leaks anywhere. No bubbles. So if you did this and found a leak, you would fix the leak before proceeding. So I couldn't find any leaks using soapy water, and the software tells me because of that, I am to replace the fuel pump. Let's do one more quick little test just to verify this. I have another set of clamps here with Tygon on them, and I'm going to pinch this line right here. This here is your impulse line. It runs from the fuel pump to the crankcase, just like on a carbureted chainsaw. Let's pinch it off. And let's retest now and see what happens. Oh, now we're holding pressure. 0.8 bar. That fuel pump is leaking fuel down the impulse line into the crankcase. So watch this. Here we are holding 0.8 bar. I'm going to release this clamp off of the impulse line. There you go. The problem's inside that fuel pump. I don't have that fuel pump in stock, but I have a 500i in stock. I'm going to peel it off this, get that saw back in operation, and I'll just order the part and throw it back on this when it gets here. Yes, that says $2,000. Full wrap. I don't always peel new parts off of new saws, but in this case, I want to get this thing fixed and out of here. I got so many saws coming in the front door, I don't need any more of a backlog. See, that wasn't hard to get to, was it? And there's what we want. Don't get any dirt in your lines. Let's go back to our saw. Same thing here. Lines off, screws out, and let's replace it. That's my test line. I'll just unhook that for now. 2 screws. There's the old fuel pump and purge bulb. And there's our new one. I will get you part numbers for all of these parts. Hook up our 3 lines again. That's our injector line. The middle one is our impulse line and fuel suction from tank. Okay, all 3 are hooked back up. So before we finish putting this back together, let's retest with a new fuel pump. So let's hook our line back up to the back of this fuel pump, just like that. And I've got my impulse unclamped right now. So this thing should hold 0.8 bar if it's working properly. Remember, it wouldn't hold any pressure before. And there you go. So our problem is in this fuel pump, which is not serviceable. You can't buy a rebuild kit for this, but we are going to tear this thing apart and have a look inside of it and see what this thing looks like inside. I think why these aren't serviceable is because of the possibility of contamination. I believe we have gaskets and diaphragms in here and needle and seat. So we're going to check that out in a few minutes. While I've got my fingers on the fuel line, let's install a brand new fuel filter. Okay, that line is back in place going into the top of the tank. Put a brand new spark plug in it, NGK CMR 6H, gapped properly. Wires tucked back in. Okay, getting this thing back together. Something's still missing though. Well, let's step outside with it and see if it'll start. Meet us out there. Well, there, this 500i runs. Just had to clear its throat out. It was pretty flooded. The saw doesn't know it's flooded, so it's delivering more fuel. Start, but it couldn't start. And it's putting out lots of bar oil. So what I'm curious about is this thing and what it looks like inside. This unserviceable fuel injection pump. Let's open it up and dissect it. Part numbers for those couple parts. You can buy the purge bulb by itself, if that's all you want. Part number, there it is right there on the screen. You're seeing Canadian list price. And if you need the whole unit, fuel injection pump, there's your part number, and again, Canadian list price. Does this come with the purge bulb? It does. Order this, you'll get everything in the number 13 box here. If you needed a fuel injector, there it is, number 1. There's your part number. Canadian list, $700. That's why you don't go throwing parts at this thing. Diagnose it and replace only what needs replacing. Tyler, have you been inside one of these before?
Not yet.
Look at that. There's a metering diaphragm. There's a metering lever, a needle and seat. It's like a little carburetor that's not serviceable. There's your little fuel pump. Little micro screen in there. The fuel pump diaphragm has a crack in it. See it right there? Well, no wonder it's leaking. I'd be sending fuel right down the impulse line. Why is that cracked like that? This little unit made by Zama.
Yeah, it's right here on it.
Oh yeah, Zama.
And then, but still owns Zama, so this will be proprietary.
So you can't buy a kit for this. Yes, you can take them apart.
Yeah.
But you can't buy the kit for it.
No.
I think due to contamination, they don't.
Look, there's dirt in the microscreen. Unless it fell in when we were taking this apart. I guess the jury's out on that.
Has anybody ever seen that before?
You know what could do that? Dirt getting past the air filter, into the crankcase, back up the impulse line, and piercing a hole through the pump. Possibly. I don't know. I'm just guessing.
No, that's a possibility. If any of you watching have seen this, let us know. Have you taken the fuel injection pump of a 500i apart before? What'd you find? I've always wanted to take one of these apart, but just never took the time to do it.
Maybe that 15,000 RPM did it.
Maybe.
Or ethanol.
Ethanol, dirt. Regardless, the saw is fixed. Bar and chain and out to the woodpile. What else do we have here that we could run against this 500i?
I have a couple saws. I'll go grab them.
Scalpel. So we need something to run this 500i against. Tyler's got some choices here. There's a Dolmar 7910 full wrap. Found that leaning on my fence this morning. Next up here we have a Husqvarna 395 XP. That's 95 cc, quite a bit bigger than those two, but that's okay. We'll run it anyways. Meet us out in the woodpile. Let's run these three saws.
Eight. these are 3 amazing saws. That thing is amazing, and it's not because I'm biased or a Stihl dealer. That 500i is something else. I haven't run one in a little bit. I remember when we sold these new, these were 7910. That was an amazing saw. It's pulling a bit longer of a bar, 28 inch. That's 24. This is running a 24. They're all sharpened with the Stihl 2-in-1. I just did them all in the shop just for consistency. It's not quite the same power, but it hasn't been serviced. The air filter, it could be dirty. I haven't even checked. It's running good. That 395, that's a torque monster. I can feel it. It did have a little hiccup in this cut here, but I did lever on it pretty hard. It's a standard carburetor saw. That 500i though, you can just feel that saw tuning itself in the cut. That's a great saw. Husky, I can't wait until they come out with, I want to try their fuel injected saw. What is it, the 564i? Maybe it's called something else. That should be neat to try. Well, so this was dropped off here because after 5 or 10 minutes it would start quitting. It would restart and then quit again. So we're gonna give this some more run time, 5-10 minutes worth of cutting. I'll probably finish up that oak log right there. So this wasn't really a scientific comparison video. This thing's got 15 more cc on these two. It was just here and I thought, let's just break out the big guns for today.
It's all for fun.
It's just for fun. I really like that saw. That's a nice saw, that 395. And the Domers are nice too. I haven't run one in years. That was fun. All right, let's get to it. So I'm gonna purge that 8 times. Break. That saw is in better shape than me. I probably should go to the gym.
Well, we have an excellent running MS500i here. These saws are amazing. This saw came in because the customer said it kept quitting on him, but we couldn't get it to start, and we found a few issues. We found lots of dirt in his fuel tank, and we found the fuel pump with a tear in the fuel pump diaphragm, allowing fuel down the impulse line into the crankcase. So I replaced his fuel pump and also his fuel filter and his spark plug, and he now has a perfect running chainsaw. So I guess that's it for the MS500i with a running and starting issue. It's on to the next chainsaw, and I have quite a lineup coming up here. MS211, a Stihl 039, a Husqvarna 345 that won't start, an 026, and an MS440 that doesn't like to start hot. Thank you so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you next time.